For my wrongs, I have just begun. Ain't no mercy, ain't no mercy. Got that purple Lamborghini lurking. Ain't no mercy, ain't no mercy. Got that purple Lamborghini lurking. Rose, don't be begging for your life, cause that's a lost cause. High stakes, body armor, suicide.
Longest intro. I was not expecting that intro to be so long. Welcome to Films in Black and White, everybody.
Yes, welcome.
It's we had to bring a little bit of extra energy because it is going to be the Brian and Doug show today. Marcus has an insane story about how he had to take a flight from New Orleans back to Vermilion, and it didn't get in until what did he say, 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, that travel schedule, I would be dead on my feet. So he's resting.
I would be absolutely dead on my feet. So he is. Cheers to Marcus for making it through that crazy travel schedule. But we're happy to be here. A real quick spoiler alert. We are going to talk Into the Spider-Verse. Roman.
Yes.
Why? Why?
Roman.
Why do you do that right away?
Come on.
But yeah, so we're going to talk Across the Spider-Verse, part 1. And so we're going to get into that. So if you haven't seen that yet, we might also talk a little season finale of Ted Lasso. We'll just see what's up. We might talk a little bit of everything today.
We're going to see what happens.
We're going to see what happens. But more importantly, Brian, how are you, sir?
Hello. You know what? I'm feeling good. I've been thinking about Across the Spider-Verse for days now. We saw it on Saturday, and I keep thinking about it. So I'm very excited to get into this movie. I there's so much to talk about here, and I can tell I'm already gonna devour it like the first one. Like I've seen the first one dozens of times, and partly that's because my then 3-year-old son, that was like the only movie he would watch. It was either that or Moana, which make of that what you will. The year was 2019, and that's what we were doing. And
that's very true.
So I'm imagining I'm also gonna watch this on repeat like a ton of times. I'll share a fun story about Liam in a little bit, but yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. I am still being a little taken off guard that we're in summer weather, and I forget that the summer weather zaps my energy, and I'm still
does it ever?
Oh my gosh. And I'm still getting that stamina back because man, it hit 7 p.m. and I'm like, I don't want to move. I
forgot how damp I was going to be all the time. Just with the level of sweat that just leaves my body. And I'm like, why is my entire back wet? It's like, oh, I did any physical activity at all outside. And that's where I'm at. So yes, I absolutely agree with that, Brian.
I'm exactly the same way. Like it even compounds into what I'm choosing to wear that day. Cause it's like, I kind of like that t-shirt. Nope. Not going to do it. Cause it's going to be gross by the end of the day. I'm going to take a hard pass.
Yep.
Hard pass.
Or you gotta switch shirts depending on what you did. Like, hey, did you just take a light walk around the block? Well, time to change shirts because that's a whole thing now.
I pushed my 18-month-year-old in the stroller, and it's like, now I have a funk now, but we went for a walk, so everybody clap.
Do anything major, but now I smell.
Yeah, exactly. But how are you, Doug?
Good. Damp.
But
of course. Besides being just a general glisten around the world for me. Doing well. Okay. Didn't really get into a lot. I feel like I had a low-key weekend, which was appreciated. Was able to do a little bit of yard work, but for the most part, took it easy outside.
You were shoveling 6 tons of gravel.
I was not shoveling 18 tons of gravel.
Or it's 18 tons.
No, it was only like 8 or so, but still it was a lot. So didn't do that. Yeah, man. Went to the pool. That's the best part, though, I will say about summer weather is that the Vermilion Public Pool is awesome. Shout out to Vermilion Public Pool Parks and Rec for running a good operation over there. So that's been a lot of fun. We all are in this. We had a moment with Harper this weekend that was a very funny weekend, but it was a reminder of a moment as a parent. And Brian, I'm sure you can relate, where they start to emulate you, like just a little bit, and you're like, oh no. So I got reminded that I need to watch how I say things. So Harrison and Harper were having a squabble. That's just things that happen when you have two of them.
No way, kids do that? I'm shocked.
Kids, believe it or not, everybody, I'm here to report they do that. And Harrison went to his bedroom. Now, we've told our kids that when they want to play, they go to their, like, if they want to play by themselves, they can go to, that's like their bastion. Like, brother, sister can bother you there. That's your space.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yes, gotta have it.
So anyway, he shuts his bedroom door.
Okay.
Goes up and she's mad that he like shut the door. She's like, open this fucking door.
Oh wow, we're doing that now.
Brittany and I, we had this moment because I was like, to Roman's comment in the chat, like I was making dinner and I kind of looked at Brittany and Brittany was sitting at the table. She goes, did she just say fucking? And I'm like, I think she did. I think she did. And so we just tried to like not make a big deal out of it because we know that like if you make a big deal, they're just inclined to do it again. But it was hysterical. Like it took every inch to not like pour out cackling. And you know what? Brittany and I are both like, technically you used it right, but don't not something you want to repeat. So that was the highlight of my weekend.
Wow. Yeah. Having your little kiddo drop the F-bomb appropriately is
for the first time. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's an achievement. That's an achievement.
I was pretty
proud.
Oh
my gosh.
Pretty proud and simultaneously like horrified. She's just been on another level these days. She gives us these like, I'm watching you eyes all the time. Like she'll look at us and she'll be like, hey dad.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Like, why? Please don't. I don't know what I did to anger
I have enough
you.
going on.
Like, I'm just trying to live my life. So yeah, that's what we got.
I dig it.
And to Roman's comment, I made some kick-ass chicken mole with rice this weekend.
Ooh,
it was very delicious.
That sounds delectable.
It was indeed. Now, Brian, we have to play a game called Catch That Quotable, but we don't have the silky sounds of Marcus J. So are you prepared? Are you prepared to pick it up, or do you need me to?
I'm ready to do the crazies here. Just picking it out from some random dialogue. I'm ready. I got my Nick Cage hand thing here. We're ready.
Perfect. Well, then we're gonna play Catch That Quotable.
All right, let's go.
That quotable. Not the silky sounds of Marcus J. The awkward sounds of Doug Wagner.
Attempted. Yeah.
It is. Brian, are you ready for this week's quote?
I'm ready. All
right.
Hit me.
Hit me. Jesus Christ, my savior, if you help me out with this one, I promise to stop cheating on my wife with black guys. Amen. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and repeat that one more time. No. Jesus Christ, my savior, if you help me out with this one, I promise to stop cheating on my wife with black guys. Amen. And I'm going to start the timer on my watch because Marcus usually has that on his computer. So, Brian, we're into our minute. We are into our minute.
Okay.
I have nothing.
I am.
This feels like it could be something like This Is the End or Ted. It feels like that style comedy for sure.
Right. I feel like this could also just be like a one-liner throwaway gag and like
that's very much what this feels like.
Like it's definitely not main character energy.
No.
It's definitely like wacky side character, like trying to get a laugh energy. But it's not a Judd Apatow. So I feel like we gotta go back a little bit.
Yep. We got 20 seconds.
Yeah, I'm going process of elimination way too slow. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go with Ted, just because this feels like it could be something like that.
I'm gonna go with Dogma because it feels like that kind of out there movie.
Okay.
I'm not confident. Low confidence here.
That's time. I am also not confident. So let's see what we got. So I'm gonna enter this in and see what we have.
Put that in the Google, and I can't wait for your
I love for my
your
Google.
cookies.
I love that my Google. This is from We Were Both Wrong. It's a comedy and it's a throwaway line,
Sports movie.
but we both got it wrong.
What
Brian, this is from The Longest Yard.
Oh,
with the Adam Sandler Longest Yard. We do have to specify the Adam Sandler Longest Yard.
Well, our assessment was correct.
We were
just
close. We were
movie.
in the same neighborhood at the wrong house.
I went too far back. And
I went not far enough back. So that's how we both missed it.
That was a good poll.
You were in the 540s of the house address. I was in the 1106s, and we just same side of the street, wrong house.
Hey, at least we had the even number. We had an even number. We knew there was one on the same side of the street. We
knew that there was an even number. Well, fantastic. Brian.
Yes.
Anything, and again, we wouldn't have gotten this right. I don't know if Marcus would have gotten this. I don't want to throw shade, but I don't know if Marcus would have gotten it. Because it's a very throwaway.
I mean, it was one of the, I don't know. I feel like Marcus has like a very deep knowledge. Now he can come correct me when he comes back on the pod, but like I feel like he has a very deep knowledge of movies that were on TNT and TBS between like 2005 and like 2012. And I feel like this was one of those movies, or maybe it was on FX or whatever. He's got a good roster of knowledge for that. So like I wouldn't put it against him. Really does. But it also depends on if this movie was on repeat,
However, Roman also has no faith in Marcus, saying Marcus probably wouldn't have gotten it either. So that's a bold stance. He's gonna come back on here. All we're doing is poking the bear. Like he's gonna.
Well,
yep, he probably would have butterscotch sodaed it.
We got Chris Schultens in the chat here saying he would have butterscotch sodaed it. So I mean, I'm very happy we have that term here on this podcast.
It's my favorite term. It's my favorite. It's my favorite term. It's my favorite.
I know that we'll never get Karen Gillan on the show, but if we ever do, I'm gonna be like, tell us about working on butterscotch soda, and she's gonna look at us like we.
She'll be like, do you mean gunpowder milkshake? Exactly.
Right. Same thing, right? Yeah. So.
Oh no. Sorry.
I he would have got it.
Would have, not wouldn't have. I was ready to just throw Roman under the bus with us. So. Apologies.
Well, Marcus, you probably would have. You probably would have whenever you listen to this.
Yep. Brian, before we get into Across the Spider-Verse, this is our whole energy is bizarre today.
It is.
Before we get into Across the Spider-Verse, anything that you all have to report on, anything crazy that you've seen out of the news of Hollywood that you wanted to touch on?
Yes. I know that this is very low-hanging fruit, but for some reason, we are following the Fast and Furious beat here. And there was
a weird beat, but we are.
It's a very weird beat, but I do feel like we need to address it. But essentially, the news came out earlier last week, and I'm going to find my source here. But essentially, we found out that the Fast X had this end credit scene with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and essentially the news came out that Dwayne Johnson's going to have his own Fast X type movie, separate completely from Fast X. It's going to be like Fast X 0.5 essentially. That is what the news, that is how they're planning this movie, and I needed to bring this up because I think it's even
like the Lion King more, 1.5.
It's just the way these movies are progressing, it's just like more bonkers the longer it gets, and like it's such a joke at this point that I feel like they're like, no, like they need to take us seriously. You know how we do that? Make a whole separate movie, and we try to make our own trilogy with Dwayne Johnson's movie being The Empire Strikes Back. That's how we do this. And I don't understand.
This feels like it's going to be the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead of the Fast X franchise. Like it's set in the same world, but it's not directly related.
And it's a spin-off, but like the rap is saying that it's not Hobbs and Shaw. This is where I saw it. Also, Dwayne Johnson shared this directly. So
okay.
But yeah, and so essentially it's going to set up Fast X Part 2. So now I don't know, is Fast X the start of the trilogy, or is this like the second in the trilogy and then the Rock's spinoff is like DLC and then we get Fast X Part 2 and then like it's so confusing. I don't even know if this is even part of the final trilogy.
Yeah, this is weird, man. Like I don't know what this is. I'm also curious if this is oh, you thought it was the Bible? Yeah, it's not, because they're gonna go off and do like I'm very curious to see if we continue to get the allegories that are built in there. Probably not, but there's a part of me that really hopes that we do. But this is gobbledygook. Like I don't understand. You build this, you build this as a 3-part process.
Yes.
Fast X 11, 12.
Right.
I don't understand now. Like, is it Fast X? And like, to your point, is it Fast 10.1 or is it Fast 10.5? And then we'll get an 11 and that's it. I mean, like, this is insane.
I know I already used a video game joke, but it's so ripe I have to go back to it. Like, it really feels like when a company's like, oh, people really like this. Okay, well, you can get the DL. It's like a whole new game, but it's from the perspective of this other character. It's the same game, but it's just a different character, and you have to play through like the same things, but like you're seeing the main events from like afar. So you're like, oh man, that spaceship crashed. I remember doing that. Well, now I get to see it being on this hill, and you're like, this is something, I guess. I don't know. And in his tweet, so I found this through Dwayne Johnson's direct Twitter. He said him and Vin put the past behind them, and that is code to me that hey Vin. So I know we had our troubles, but look, Black Adam, that's a non-starter. I'm happy to come back and juice your franchise. Yeah. Just give me my own movie and we can just go on our merry way. And I feel like that's exactly
do whatever you want me to do.
Yep.
But what was the name, Brian? You might remember it, because this was very much a part of like right around like PlayStation 3, 4. Okay. A video game where like you ran around Seattle and like absorbed powers from people.
Oh my god!
How was that called? And
Are you talking about Infamous?
Yes, but they made like an Infamous like 3 or something, and it was set in Seattle. And I remember there was somebody who had like a neon power, and then they made DLC, but it wasn't, because it was its own game.
Exactly.
And so that game is the example of your point. Like it is exactly it.
Yeah, I believe that the title of that game was Second Son.
Yes, and it was Second Son.
The development of that game, if I remember right, was basically like, hey, you should buy a PS4. This is the only game we can really show you, though, that is made for the PS4. So it was like super bare bones, and it was essentially Infamous, but like, hey, it's on PS4 now, which is kind of apt here for Fast. It's Fast and Furious, but it's The Rock now again. I don't know, man. Fast and Furious just it continues now to feel like, I don't know, it feels like celebrity like vacation club. Like if you're a celebrity and you're like, hey, I want to hang out with you, but I gotta have a good reason to do it. I gotta make money. Let's just go to a Fast and Furious movie. And I feel like that's what Brie Larson did. She's like, hey, I just want to hang out with these people. Like, I don't really care about any of this. Like, I'm an Oscar award-winning actress. I don't care. So this kind of just feels like Dwayne Johnson's like, hey guys, I want to hang out again. That's what this feels like.
It feels like he's taking his ball and going home. He feels like kind of like a scorned friend. Like, the guy who like he quit The Office and he was like, fuck you guys, I made it big. Like I won $1 million. I don't need you all anymore. And then he found out how much the government took in taxes and has to come back to work in 2 weeks. And it's like, I guess
Honestly, I've read so I'm fascinated by the subject. I'm going to detour really quick. I'm going to pull Marcus with some chaos energy. I've read a lot of stuff about winning the lottery. I never think I will win the lottery. I just want to put this out there. I know I'm more likely to like get struck by lightning or turn into Thor.
Yeah.
And basically if you do win though, like one of the first things people recommend is like get a lawyer, because they know how to take care of all that stuff, because the taxes will kill you. In some places you have to be in person to pick up the money, which can be like a whole other thing. And then on top of it, like as soon as people know that you won, of course everybody's coming to talk to you like, hey, what are you gonna do with that money? And the lawyer takes care of all of that. They can even accept the money for you. It can be totally anonymous. So anyway, for any of our listeners and you win the lottery, get a lawyer, save yourself some trouble.
Welcome to Powerball with Black and White, everybody. Like that's great advice. If you learn nothing else from this podcast this week, learn that.
I mean, you can even get like a Saul Goodman lawyer, which take that interpretation however you want, you know.
A by the book, but also skeevy looking, but deep down, good dude.
He knows how to bend the book the right way.
Absolutely.
Usually.
That's what matters. That's what matters.
But that was the news I wanted to pick on, because I think it's silly. And we've been following these movies now. And
for a while.
So he posted this on June 1st. We're only reporting it 4 days later. But I know, Roman, you want your Fast and Furious Patreon special. I see you in the chat.
I think he would. No, I think what he wants is, I think he wants the like advice on lawyers. He wants a whole legal special.
Oh my gosh. There's so much dumb knowledge and useless knowledge I've picked up, especially after leaving student affairs, like all the weird legal stuff I learned, like for doing like. Anyway, whatever. I'll save it for the Patreon, but it's related to animal shows. But that was the information I wanted to kind of dunk on and talk about. And of course, we're going to see Fast X.5, whatever they're going to call it, DLC. So
that's true. That's exactly what it is. Awesome. Well, Brian, I have and would like to get into. We do have Mountain Dew. We do have Mountain Dew.
We will have premium Mountain Dew content coming.
Brian, I need to report on the season finale of Ted Lasso. So
let's talk about this.
So last week we talked a little bit about the season finales of shows. You broke down the season finale of Succession, and I was like, "Oh no, we don't have a season finale for Ted Lasso," and it literally came out that Wednesday. So the same day the pod dropped. And it was really good. I was very good, satisfied with the way that this looks, with the way that it kind of played out. So quick spoiler alert, if you have not seen the season finale, just as put a pin in it, come back. So I was really pleased overall with how this played out. Now I can see how folks would be disappointed, specifically around the area of where like Ted and Nate and this final sort of confrontation between the two of them. Kind of because I think everybody wanted that to be more dramatic than it was.
Of course.
But I think the way in which it was approached was so well done that it made it such more of a heartfelt moment, which is just so on brand for this particular show.
Well,
So, because I think everybody wanted there to be some like big argument. I think they wanted to see Ted get really mad. But there's a part of me that's like, then you haven't been paying attention. Like, because my favorite moment is from the episode before the season finale, where Ted tells his mom, where Ted says "fuck you" to his mom 5 times, and that's the most frustrated that I think I've ever seen him.
Right.
But there's this moment between the two of them where it's like, dude, you weren't paying attention. Like, this is this isn't it. Like, that's not what this show is all about. So I was really pleased with how that played out.
And the show, I feel like a lot of the overarching themes of the show too is about like healing and understanding how you move on from certain things and acknowledging the bad things in your life, but finding that happy, right? And like AFC Richmond, they're a losing football team, and acknowledging like, nah, we suck. Like but how do we get better? And that, and like, I feel like, I don't know, to me, that is kind of what I expected out of this finale of like, not necessarily like, Ted Lasso isn't known for like West Wing style, like, hey, we're gonna
tell-off
argue in an
moments.
office.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not what no, it's about like, hey man, I love you and I accept you for who you are. And you made bad decisions, but make a choice to be better. See you next week. Like that's the show.
And the thing I sort of remarked to myself as I was watching it is I think what I learned from it is that doing the right thing is not easy. It is hard, but over time it's an active choice. And there's never this moment where like Ted ever fully disconnects from the choices he's making around the actions and how he treats other people. And that's the thing that I took from it that I thought was so insightful and profoundly like impactful on me is you're making an intentional choice. You're making an intentional choice to say, I can make this about me, or I can make it about, or I can practice forgiveness, let this person heal, but it also simultaneously hears myself. So kind of like to your point, Brian, of like, I appreciate this moment of like healing for the other person is oftentimes healing for yourself, especially in areas where it's forgiveness, because it's so much harder to hold on to that than it is to say, this isn't a big deal. And what I loved about his relationship with the team too, is I really loved this idea of like, no, it's just who he is. And it seems really, really easy. And this is what I liked about 3 seasons. I liked the whole show. The reason what I took from the show was it's not easy to be a good person. It's hard and it takes intentional choice and intentional effort, but the benefits for that are so fundamentally impactful that how could you not? Like, I thought that was such a profound moment for me anyway.
And I feel like, and I mean, I know everybody loves Roy Kent, right? Because he's just this man, he's this hard ball of energy, and it's funny seeing him interact with these people who are a bit more in touch with their feelings, is maybe a better way to say it. And even Roy Kent is able to get to this point of acceptance and understanding of where he needs to be, understanding that he maybe didn't have the career he wanted to have, and that that sucks. That's not good, and that sucks. But the show always continues to frame these. It continues to frame these failures or missteps or sad things in a way of like, that is one step on your journey to being like the better version of you. And that was season 3, even though it was kind of it was a little all over the place.
It was very much all over the place. It was very, very much all over the place.
Yeah.
And there were certainly moments in it that I thought were like, okay, what are you doing this to keep us going? Like the whole, I felt like there was more of a will they, won't they with Rebecca than there have been in the past.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay. But to your point about Roy, your point about Roy, like, I think that last moment that he has of like, can a person change? There's that whole like exchange of like, is it possible for a person to change? And I think the point that Ted makes in conjunction with everything else is, it's not about changing who you are to be other people. It's about embracing the parts of you that are great. And on the parts you want to fix, accepting help and looking for help to fix those parts, but not to be somebody else, to be yourself. And I think that that's advice we can all do, is like, all take is it's more important to focus on the you are than the other people, than the other people want you to be. And that's such it was such a good, I really appreciated it. I don't typically cry during shows, but I definitely got teary-eyed between this particular show, especially the moment like with his kid at the very end of like this moment of like that. I don't understand how you could not get choked up at that part. Like that was just such a cool part.
I mean, and that part especially, I think, I mean, I don't know, as a dad, like stuff with kids now hits different, but I do feel like it works on a lot of levels, because again, with finales, you're trying to make it so that it had to end this way, but still be unexpected. And considering the show started with him being like, oh, leaving my kid. Okay. And you're kind of like, what is this guy about? So having that sense of closure, that I think that was good.
Yeah. And to Roman's point in the chat, the Coach Beard backstory was incredible. I'm not going to give any of it away, but I think that was also one of the more powerful moments of the show of like, his ability to forgive and to accept you for you is so profound. And it's not even that you see that with Nate, because what Nate did was shitty. What Nate did was shitty, but think about when you put that in perspective to like what Coach Beard did and how Ted's approach is the same regardless, was such a cool moment. So yeah, I appreciated that part as well.
Well, and I think if you want to go, like, I mean, we did the spoilers on this. Like, this is, you know, this is spoilers for all the Ted Lasso. But yeah, I think with Nate's story, I mean, like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to go as far to say that Ted Lasso is also Nate's story. I think maybe a better way to say it though is that Nate kind of, you get the full cycle. You get the full cycle of everything you just talked about of like, who do I need to be the best version of myself? I need to make sure it's not what other people think it needs to be. And Ted is just always his authentic self, which people think is a facade. And then Nate turns into this person who is like basically the mirror version of that. So yeah.
Well, and not only that, Nate gets an opportunity to say, the thing is, kind of to what you were saying, Brian, is everybody thinks like, oh, Ted's being fake. He's not tapping in tune to how he should really behave or how he should really act or who he should really be. There's a lot of coulda, woulda, shouldas. With Ted of like, you need to act a certain way. You need to hold yourself this person for a certain way. And what we get to see is what happens if he would have, right? Like we get to see what happened if he would have leaned into that. And we get to see, no, that's a whole environment that is beyond toxic. When you lean into that idea of like men have to act a certain way, particularly in the area of like being wealthy and sports and business, you have to act and perform a certain way. There's an expectation that come off. What I appreciated about it is like, no, you get to see like, no, with Nate, he had a taste of that and found that it turned him into something that he didn't want to be, so much so that he quits a dream job. He was coaching West Ham, which is it's a Premier League team. And I just think that moment there is so like, whew, shit. Like that is such a cool moment overall.
Right.
Because you get to see what happens. Like what happens when that goes that way. And so, and that's why I appreciated his come around. And I think it's a little bit more natural than people would have thought. It's because I think deep down, season 1 Nate was who we thought he was. Like deep down,
that's a good way to put it.
He is who we thought who we thought he was.
Yeah.
It's just he got corrupted by power, opportunity, and this sense of like internal dialogue of I have to act a certain way, I have to be a certain way, and end up all again. He's kind of a highlight of like what happens if Ted would have gone and acted what was expected of him. But he's also this kind of commentary on Roy to a certain extent as well, because this whole idea of like, you can change, but at the end you can't get away from who you are. And I think that's where what happened in sort of season 3 and why it was kind of all over the place is he got away from who he was and started playing by other people's rules. And it pushed him to a point where thankfully he was able to pull back from it, but not everybody gets that chance.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is I remember there was a lot of rumors and blind items that Ted Lasso season 3 was it was having a hard time getting out the door. And I'm curious if the compromise for that was, I don't know. Because you have so many things happening and like the Keeley stuff, I feel like it's been pretty well hinted at like that. It wasn't, there wasn't a lot there. And I'm curious if as they were developing it, they were like, whatever, it's the last season, just get it out the door. And like maybe they wanted to fine tune it more, but Apple needed to have this in their schedule. And this was the compromise because it just didn't feel as tight as 1 and 2, but I saw what it was trying to do. And I don't know. It's such a positivity banner show that like I forgive it pretty easily because
you kind of have to.
I think it's hard. I think it's hard to be that type of show. And I mean, this is I'm the guy that's like, give me Succession, give me my Breaking Bad, my, like Sopranos, like all these types of shows that are just like, these are bad people doing very not good things. And then, trying to have a Ted Lasso out there where it's like, oh, gee golly, yeah, that's okay, let's go for it.
Right.
I don't know. I think that's impressive in this type of environment.
And I think they probably, I'm sure that there was some internal wrestle over whether or not they should do a season 4, because this show is so powerful. And to your point, Brian, if you stand up Succession with Ted Lasso is just so easily consumable because it is such a, like you said, it's such a positivity high that at some point in time, it's easy for someone to be like, I love this. Keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming. Yeah. And so I could see where, if that was what the battle was, it's like, no, we want either a spinoff or we want another season. And Jason Sudeikis, and he's gone on record, I've seen him on some interviews lately, where he said no, it had to be 3 seasons. I didn't want to do this anymore. I mean, not because I didn't enjoy the character. I love the character. He's just like, anything we would have done after this would have been such a letdown with what we had written. We wrote season 3 to be this culmination and end. If we had come back and done a season 4, it wouldn't have been as impactful. So
yeah, and I think Sudeikis as a storyteller, I think he gets it.
Yes,
I know most people know him from his comedy experience and performances, but I think he gets story, and he has seen so many other stories just get this bloated mess. And that's not what makes the money. That's not what streamers want. They just want you to keep going if you're profitable.
They do.
But to Apple Plus, though, to put a point on their board, so to speak, their stuff is getting known as it's not going to be super long. It's going to be a tight, short story, but it's going to be good. You see that with Severance. You see that with Defending Jacob, which starred Chris Evans, and I feel like that flew under everybody's radar. But I think he has a good performance in that. And you see with Ted Lasso, these kind of smaller scale shows that are not 26 episodes and whatever, huge production budget. So, and I feel like that's what Apple's making a name for. And the last thing I'll say about that is very attractive to me as a approaching middle-aged guy with kids, because I don't have time for a 14, 15, 16 episode series. Daredevil Born Again is probably going to be the exception, because I just don't have that time anymore.
No, absolutely not. No, I can't invest that much time, energy, and effort in it. And I kind of like the idea of there's a certain portion of it. I mean, I see what they're trying to do. You're trying to remember when we said this kind of in the midst of the pandemic, and even as we started to return back to theaters, of this idea of the movie theater being an event. Experiencing something in a theater. I think there's something that the streamers are trying to do, but still quite haven't figured out yet consistently, of how do we make a show a weekly event for either an apartment, a family, what have you. You sit down, you watch Ted Lasso, you enjoy it, you move on, and they're still playing with that format and still trying to figure it out. So which is interesting. So
but I agree.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is I think comedians again, I'm going to go, this is a very pro comedians podcast. I think comedians understand story better than most, because you have to write a good story for your punchline to work. Punchline doesn't work if the setup isn't there, and the setup is your story. So you just can't do it. So that's why I think people like Jason Sudeikis, Will Ferrell to a certain extent, Adam Sandler within reason. Some of them are really, really good at story, because they understand that there has to be continuity or the audience isn't going to get the punchline and you're going to lose the laugh. I just think that there's such a profound moment there that's really, really cool. So,
well, and I Barbarian, which I've talked about. It's a horror movie on HBO Max. Zach Kreger, he was known for comedy. He was on The Whitest Kids You Know. He did 60 episodes of that for 6 years. I'm looking at this on IMDb. He was known for comedy, and then just bam, whips out Barbarian, one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. And so I feel like comedy writers, you are such in the trenches, just trying to churn out a sketch or something that is going to make sense, that you get that story structure, and you know when you're going to have your audience, you know when you're going to start losing them. So I totally agree, from the horror end of things.
Yep, agreed. Well, we put it off long enough, Brian. We've thoroughly dissected.
I did not expect to talk about Ted Lasso for 20 minutes.
I'm glad we did. I also did not, which I'm excited about. But Brian, we saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Hell yeah,
this
we did.
weekend.
Hell yes.
And so we're gonna talk about it. So again, quick spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it yet, you don't want to spoil it. We're gonna get into some things.
I mean, I feel like everybody and their brother saw this.
It certainly feels that way. But Brian, care to relegate us with the barbershop summary for Across the Spider-Verse? I feel like if anybody is equipped to do it, it's you.
All right, let me get my web shooters on. I mean,
okay.
Thread the needle, ring the bell here.
That's right.
This is for you, Marcus. I'm gonna try my best here. So what had happened was we start Across the Spider-Verse. We're opening with Gwen, Spider-Woman. And we are getting essentially her backstory. We find out that her Peter Parker was kind of like the Lizard in her universe, and she lost her best friend. Her dad, the cop, thinks Spider-Woman murdered Peter Parker, and that is a big deal to him. So there's already this immediate tension. We already go to the big action sequence. Also, I'll talk about this later, but the colors in this sequence are just magnificent. And Spider-Gwen hears that that is my nickname for her. We're talking about Spider-Woman in this movie, but Spider-Gwen, she goes to the Guggenheim. There's super villain activity, and like it's the Vulture, but it's like, what if Da Vinci was the Vulture on paper?
Yep.
And there's stuff happening. Surprise! There's dimensional shenanigans, and Spider-Man 2099 shows up, and she gets recruited into Spider-Verse Shield, essentially, after her dad finds out who she is. So then it feels like the movie starts, which is great. It's a great feeling. We're checking in on Miles. He's a teenager. He's growing up. He's late to an advising appointment. He's battling Spot, villain of the week, right? We'll come back to that later.
Yep.
And essentially, we get this family tension. He's not showing up. It's because of him being Spider-Man. And the movie sets in motion the series of events that has these themes of family, knowing who you are, and trying to be there for the people that matter most when you're going to be your own person and you're going to have your own adventures. And so we go across time and space. Spider-Gwen checks in on him, but Miles, he's curious, and he goes through this interdimensional portal. We meet a Spider-Man that is Indian inspired, and that leads us to the Spider Society, I believe is what they call themselves.
They do.
And we then learn that Miles is an anomaly, and that's bad. And we need to let bad things happen to Miles to make sure that the canon stays intact. Otherwise the whole Spider-Verse falls apart. And at that point, it's Miles versus Spider-Man 2099, and we go on our merry way. That is the quickest summary I can give.
Yeah. And that is also the like spoiler-free one too, because there's a whole thing with the Spot coming back, and
I figured we'd leave the Spot. Yeah,
that's a good one. That's a good one to leave. Let's do cast really quickly before we get into this. So
let's do it.
Shameik Moore comes back as Miles Morales. Haley Steinfeld comes back as Gwen Stacy. Brian Tyree Henry comes back as Jeff Morales. Luna Lauren Velez plays Rio Morales. Jake Johnson is back again as Peter B. Parker. Here's where we start to get some new folks. So Oscar Isaac plays Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099. Jason Schwartzman does incredibly great job of playing the Spot. Issa Rae plays Jessica Drew. Daniel Kaluuya plays Hobie Brown, aka Spider-Punk. Karan Soni from Deadpool. Yes. Karan Soni from Deadpool plays Praviter Prahabkar, I believe is how you say it.
I think so.
Yep. And then Shea Wingham plays George Stacy, so Gwen Stacy's dad. And then we get into like the various Mahershala Ali comes back as Uncle Aaron. And then we get into all of the different Spider people, and there are a lot of them. Highlights that I want to touch on.
Yeah,
Andy Samberg plays Ben Reilly, aka Scarlet Spider, which I thought was incredible. I love that one.
Yes.
J.K. Simmons does the voice of J. Jonah Jameson throughout this.
He is a Nexus being. He is always J. Jonah Jameson.
He is always J. Jonah Jameson. And yeah, I don't think he ever won't be. And also, Donald Glover makes a live action appearance in this movie.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Playing the Prowler, which I think is also really, really great. Some other ones that are in here that I thought were really cool is you got to hear Catherine Hahn playing Doc Ock, but you also got to hear Doc Ock from like Spider-Man 2, Alfred Molina. You got to hear him in this too. There were nods to Lego Spider-Man, the video game versions of Spider-Man. There was so much in here in terms of like other pieces. Also, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are also in this, in case you're curious as well. So everybody and their brother was in this. Everybody and their brother.
Deep cut to the animated version, Spectacular Spider-Man, was also in this and got like significant screen time during. He was
behind Miles Morales for 5 minutes, felt like forever in a
like
shot. So.
Like any Spider-Man you could imagine, it was here.
Yeah, absolutely accurate. So there was a lot. Let's talk quick box office before we get into anything else. They got $120.5 million in their box office opening, dethroned The Little Mermaid. So it opened to $120.5 million in North America. It's the second biggest opening to date for Sony Animation. It also made it to $208.6 million worldwide.
Jeez.
So all in all, this movie did quite well and should be very proud of itself. And so very, very cool. Brian, thoughts on Across the Spider-Verse?
I mean, I think what makes it so hard to talk about a movie that you love is like people are like, you like it, you can't be critical of it or you can't review it, but like I can, because this it's hard to like, it's gonna feel hyperbolic, but the bar this movie set, not just for animation, but
yes,
Roman says
right. That was just a tip of the iceberg.
Like it sets the bar so high for superhero movies and animated movies that everyone's going to be comparing even MCU projects to this. And I think that's a good thing.
In my head, I already have, Brian. I got halfway through this and I went, oh, it did the multiverse better than Multiverse of Madness. Like it just
100% did.
It did it without even thinking about it. Like it was just like, I was flabbergasted by how well it did that.
And I think the other thing that needs to be talked about here is that it is rated PG. And I'm pretty sure Multiverse of Madness was PG-13.
It was.
And so this movie, in my opinion, this movie gave more credit to the audience than Multiverse of Madness did. And Multiverse of Madness had 2 other projects leading into it to expose people to the idea of the multiverse. Spider-Man had 1. It had the first movie in a trilogy, which, okay, fine. But then it's a PG movie with kids intent, like with kids kids in mind of taking in this material. And it went for it. And it is good.
It absolutely went for it.
And I feel like the MCU at this point, not to make it all about the prom queen here, but like they have to start doing that. They have to start giving their audience more credit, because there were some really complicated, and Chris Scholtens and I talked about this over text. Like there's some more heady ideas in Across the Spider-Verse. And I think particularly talking about, okay, so there's a multiverse and you saw the classic MCU Loki.
They stuck with that imagery.
They sure did, and they definitely got permission from Marvel to do that. So
they didn't need to. They made a choice.
They didn't even need to acknowledge it.
No, they did not.
So, and I enjoyed that as an MCU fan, and so being like, all right, here's our regular timeline of other parallel universes. Anyway, here's ours. And they made it like a tetrahedron 3D thing around the main multiverse. And then they're talking about, and we can get into the details of this, but then they're talking about, okay, anyway, if you do XYZ, this universe collapse, and then it affects our universe, which is why you can't do ABC. That was all explained in kind of a lampshaded info dump, which I do appreciate because that is a lot of information. And I appreciate the line of like, all right, do the info thing. Just do it. Like, just get it over with.
Just get it out of the way. Just dump it on everybody and we can all move on.
And the movie wasn't afraid to play with that. The movie wasn't afraid to give you these kind of complicated string theory concepts. And then even if you like, and have it meld so well that the action that there were stakes. Sure, it kind of like the universe is going to collapse. Sure, but it was situated inside the heart of Miles, which I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, you actually made it work for the main character, and it wasn't just like the world's ending, we got to do something. It was like, no, Miles, this whole world is his dad. And we're getting
Brad, I'm so glad you phrased it that way, because that's exactly the way I was going to phrase it. Is like what you did is you said you made the stakes so compelling because you said, okay, Miguel O'Hara says, Spider-Man 2099 says, hey, like if you start cutting off these canon moments, the whole thing could fall apart, and we lose our universes and things don't happen the way that they need to. And Miles being like, but my dad and my mom are my universe, and the spot is going to hurt them. So sorry, I don't give a shit enough about like your world. And it was just, it was just so well done. And Brian, there was some deep, that whole thing of like, it's not like the canon moment is the canon moment is not bit by a spider. The canon moment is we lost our Uncle Ben. The canon moment is a police chief has to die. Like, all of it is just such a huge moment. Those are not light topics for kids in mind. And they didn't, again, they trusted that either parents or the audiences would be able to understand the weight of that. And that is so smart. Like, treat these people like they can figure it out. Like, that is huge.
Yeah. And I think, and I feel like it's done so well that like it worked, and it's really hard to do this, but it works on so many levels because you and I have probably heard the origin of Spider-Man collectively at least 72 times.
Too many times.
In my life.
It's tied between that and the origin of Batman. But yes, I have heard both infinite amount of times.
I mean, I've heard it so many times. They didn't even do it in the Amazing Spider-Man series. I take it back. In Tom Holland's. I apologize.
Yes,
in Tom Holland's Spider-Man series. They didn't even do it because everybody knew they were sick of it.
Yep.
And so to thread this needle of like, we need to acknowledge this, but make it in a way that it's not overdone, but yet still introduces newcomers to this. And so we're going to get meta with it, right? One of the reasons that I was so enthralled by this like linchpin moment in the movie of Miguel O'Hara saying like, you can't go save your dad, it needs to be a canon moment, is that we have so many conversations, especially, and even on our podcast, but like everywhere, online, everywhere, we talk about comic books, wherever. And like, some people just get so upset when it's like, well, when they adapted it this way, that's not canon. You can't have X, Y, Z. You can't. And I feel like there's
Luke
so much.
Can't fly anything other than a X-wing because it's not. He only flew those. He didn't like how they felt. This book cites it, and that book is canon. He didn't like how that starship handled, and it's like, get fucked with that. Like, we don't need to do that.
Like, and even Spider-Man comics, like Spider-Man just always feels this character to be destined to be sad and have all these things ripped away. And like, I feel like this movie was taking that idea and flipping it on its head of like, do we really have to keep doing the same thing over and over? And that is what, I don't know, to me, Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099 was representing like, no, Spider-Man stories, they always got to be like this. And Miles kind of represented like, look, man, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm still Spider-Man. And that was so powerful to me just on so many levels, because even for this movie, people were like, oh, that's a black Spider-Man. And it's like, no, it's Spider-Man. Like, it is Spider-Man. The movie.
Yeah, they did that. They did that with Jessica Drew. They did it with Spider-Woman. Like, Spider-Woman in this is
Yeah.
Played by Issa Rae. She's black in this movie. Like,
exactly.
We don't need to do it any differently. It is what it is. Like,
I mean, and to accept that story the way it is and to keep moving, it felt like very layered is what I'm trying to say.
I loved it. Brian, I absolutely agree. I loved it. And I love that you made the Maniac Spider-Man 2099 like the most like if you're talking about like kind of crazy storyline Spider-Mans short of the Man Spider, which is a bunch of spiders that make up a man and fight crime, like Man Spiders. He is by far one of the crazier ones in terms of visual and who he is. So like I appreciate the route that you went with that. So yeah, this was I completely agree, Brian. I think that they did such a good job of kind of being like, hey, like kind of putting comic book fandoms on trial a little bit and saying like, hey, y'all knock it the fuck off. Like it doesn't need to be anything other than fun. If you enjoy it, that's all that matters. Like
exactly
what matters. And again, I love this idea of they've said that Spider-Man is probably one of the better allegories for the United States in terms of like symbolism. Seriously, he's supposed to represent every man USA, like good kid, trying to do well in school, just trying to do the right thing, but then pulled into this most fantastical moment. Yeah, and they say that he's a good representation for the city of New York and other things. And I love that whole thing of like, yeah, but what if he can be happy? Like, what if he doesn't? Things don't have to be shitty all the time. Like, I think that I think you have to let it play out. I just thought that again. I just thought that was well done. So
I know I agree, and I think just why can't we do both? Like, because I feel like in our attention economy, right? Like when we're doing social media, it's got to either be a this or a that. It's always got to be a yes or a no, or the biggest thing or the biggest loss or the biggest whatever. You get what I'm saying? And
do you like this? Like it. If you don't, well then keep swiping. It's it's either like keep looking or stay here. Yep.
And I feel like Spider-Verse took that idea, Across the Spider-Verse took that idea, and it was like, you can have both and it's fine. Like, chill out, everybody.
Yeah, dude.
And I feel like they did that part really well. And I know we're kind of jumping into like the more tedious and complex ideas of Across the Spider-Verse, but this was one of the reasons I wanted to see this movie, was because I knew we would get some explanation. And I'm kind of bummed because like right now I'm trying to think of a way out of this, of like, how does Miles get out of this?
Yeah.
And like, I am genuinely stumped. And the only thing I can come up with right now, so like the basic, I'm going to just say it just so everybody's on the same page. I mean, Spider-Man 2099 is saying that if someone is in another dimension or a canon event doesn't happen, or you go live in another universe, basically that spider universe will collapse, or it has a great likelihood of collapsing. The one that we saw from the India inspired Spider-Man, they were able to like lock it down. I'm not really sure what that explanation was.
They had some scientific-y statement where it was like, we might be able to rebuild it if we're lucky, but we're not always lucky. And he says like it's a stasis proto something. Like it's just he says throw 3 science words together.
Yes,
that's what we do. So
and maybe there's more there, but I'm also worried we're getting an unreliable narration from Spider-Man 2099.
That's the thing about him.
Like, I don't know if he's saying everything that's on the up and up, or if he's saying things to get people to do what he wants. So I'm very curious how we thread that needle.
And again, you're doing it in a world in which you've now created, this is literally a universe full of heroes.
Yes.
It's a universe full of people who are Spider-Man, arguably one of the purest heroes in the Marvel universe.
I mean,
and you're saying like, and hey, guess what? We're not going to be able to trust literally any of them. Like, enjoy. Yeah.
This is one of the points of discussion I want to bring up, is that I was kind of bummed, and I don't know if I'm assuming it was intentional, but like, and we can talk about themes and whatever, but I was kind of bummed and betrayed. I got hurt in my heart when Miles was like, wait a minute, you all talked about this? You all talked about betraying me. You all talked about keeping me here to prevent me from saving my dad. And we're talking like Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman. We're talking Peter B. Parker with the kid.
Yeah.
Like that was rough. And I was like, really, these characters would do that? And I'm willing to give this story the benefit of the doubt and see what part 3 does with that. But that was rough for me.
I'm flabbergasted, and maybe it's because you can't go this psychological with it.
Right.
But when they're talking about like these canon moments,
yes,
these moments are supposed to shape you. And they even went so far as to say that Peter B. Parker says, like, we had to experience, all of us had to experience our Uncle Ben moment in order for us to be who we are now. How you are then also, it's talking out of both sides of your mouth. It's like, we have to do this in order to be shaped by it, but we're going to keep you here so you don't try to stop and avoid this moment. There's a part of it of like, no, good, let him go. Maybe he tries to stop it. You know, he's not going to be successful and he's going to learn from it. So that's where I kind of was like, you all, there's a missed opportunity to be like, our experiences help shape us and we can't put our head in the sand with them.
Right.
And it felt really juxtapositioning, but that's me being like overtly critical, like really critical. But I think to your point of like, it is sort of one of those moments of like, why would they do that though? Like they've all had their Uncle Ben moment. They know how powerful this is.
Right.
So why are we doing this?
And I give a pass to Gwen Stacy, not because she's like one of my favorite characters at this point now, but like the movie, you could even say that this is like Spider-Gwen's movie. Almost.
Oh yeah, very much so.
The emotional arc of this movie begins with Gwen. By the way, some of the most inventive and awe-inspiring animation I have seen. Seen.
Brian,
period.
It was incredible. The visuals in this were incredible.
It was. The best explanation I can give was that it was like a living watercolor painting mood ring.
Yes.
And anything that Gwen was feeling, you immediately got sucked into her world. And Maggie, she made a great point. She was like, honestly, at one point I was like, what color is this girl's hair? Everything keeps changing. And I was like, yeah, like it was kind of reacting to her mood. Like when she was feeling down, her hair was blue, trying to reflect that. Like, and
Harrison kept saying, why does the color keep changing so much? And I said, buddy, it's just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Art, man.
That's why, bud. Yeah.
And I could talk about that for a while. But seeing Gwen start her story there and then end her story being like, I messed up big time. And I'm going to fix this. I'm going to get the Spider crew back together and we're going to go find Miles. And so I see that as an arc for her, like, because I also think, and I think we'll touch on this in the third movie, I don't know, but Spider-Man 2099 does this thing of just like, I have all the answers, everybody. Follow me. I know what I'm doing. I have all the tools. Don't worry about it. And
I have the experience. I've tried to do this before and it failed.
And he may not end up being a big bad. I could see him being redeemed. I also think it's important, though, that the subtext here is like, Spider-Man can be influenced like more easily than other heroes, and that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you get a guy that's like, I know exactly what you're going through. Follow me and we'll fix everything and we'll keep everybody safe. That's incredibly appealing.
I mean, arguably Tony did that to him in Civil War. So yes, Brian,
100%.
It is very much when you can compel the greatest Spider-Man's greatest weakness is not like water. It's the people he it's people he loves, and any villain or superhero that's trying to like use that for his own best interest. All he has to do is say, hey, do you want to protect the people that you love most? Then you got to follow me, or otherwise something bad will happen to him. Not even if they're going to die, just something bad might happen. So
and I also, and this is kind of taking it a step outside across the Spider-Verse, but I mean, like, this is how dictators and authoritarians come to power. They tell everybody, they got it. Just do what I say and everyone will be safe. And everyone's like, hey, we're going to be safe. And
I don't care.
And that is, I feel like Spider-Punk is such a perfect addition
and
to
again,
this story.
The animation, Brian, of Spider-Punk was so chaotic, but so
amazing.
Fucking awesome.
It was pointed out to me on Twitter, and I cannot find the user, but Spider-Punk style does keep changing because he hates consistency and confority. So which I did not come up with this idea, and I think that's an amazing,
incredible point.
Detail, and it enraptured me every single frame he was in. I could only look at Spider-Punk. I can't wait to watch this again because I know I missed stuff.
It makes. And the thing about this is that the reason why this is such a home run, and the reason why I think Marvel was like, yeah, fuck it, go ahead, use our little twirly thing. You're gonna make a shitload for us in back issues of comic books that we don't even fucking care. Like, this made me want to dive into everything. Like this made me want to like pick up and find like books that I could read anywhere. So I'm very, again, if I'm Marvel, I don't care. I do want to talk about the Spot. And I do want to talk about Jason Schwartzman.
I mean, he's going to be pretty. Yeah, he's going to be pretty important. I feel like in the third,
which is a pretty incredible feat for him. Because if I were like doing a poll, if I went to like Minneapolis and I asked, 10 people in a comic book store, and I said, give me your top 3 Spider-Man villains, none of them would be like, who I have to mention, the Spot, and so. The fact that they took that idea of villain of the week and they said, what if somebody's kind of scorned by that general like B tier supervillain status? And so for background, just very quickly, the origin story is just a smidgen different in this one than it is versus the comic book. The Spot appeared in the Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 97, which debuted in 1984. The name is right, Jonathan Owen. The only difference is Jonathan Owen is working for the Kingpin, trying to recreate the abilities that Cloak and Dagger have. And that scientific experiment goes wrong and gives him all the holes on him versus the Hadron Collider thing that was in the basement giving him his powers. Well, I appreciate how they adapted it because they kind of adapted it really seamlessly. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. That makes sense. Like, absolutely. That tracks. Multiverse, like switching universes from the first one. What if that were imprinted on a person? Sold. Got it. So, but Jason Schwartzman did a fantastic job of being both the lovable, like, okay, you're a villain, but I kind of feel bad for you. But also then that switch when he gets his power and how that immediately goes to his head. Oh my gosh. Just incredible.
And Spot, I will confess on this podcast, I did not know about Spot until I read him in a children's book.
Oh, Brian, we've read the same children's book because I didn't know about him either. Like
the Spider-Man 5-minute stories,
5-minute stories about Spider-Man. Yep. So yes,
and it's a story about like he steals people's purses and Gwen Stacy's hot dog
at the zoo. Like
like something super like just very like basic and when I saw him in the preview, I was like, well, that's cool. Like, I know who Spot is because of children's books. And then, holy buckets, the animation they did to turn him into this nightmare demon ghost spirit was frightening.
They turned him into like the Thin Man. Like they turned him into horrific. They turned him into something you see sketched at a an insane asylum in a horror movie in the 90s. Like he looks like he's straight from The Ring. Like it was terrifying.
And I will be honest, I took my 6-year-old Liam. I did not take my 4-year-old to this because I knew he could not handle Into the Spider-Verse. So I was like, this is a no-go. We'll watch it on streaming. It's fine.
Yep.
But Liam he didn't move from his seat. I was expecting him to be like, this is what is this? I'm scared. I'm a child. But he stared that black cloud down. And I was like, kid, I'm scared of this. Like, this is like that. Yeah. I'm surprised that made it past the PG rating, if I'm being a little honest.
It was a little, I mean, it was very creepy. I mean, and it's in a world where everything is smooth and colorful, for him to be drawn almost by pencil and unpredictably is where it was like unpredictably and unstable. It's animation. Like he looks more like a sketch because he's like such at that point in time, he becomes such a part of everything. And he's more, and if you really want to get meta, and I'm definitely reading into this, he's more theoretical as a character at that point because he's such a combination of all the different multiverses at that point.
Right.
Which is why he can switch. He can't identify with one. So what's the common thread? Lines that you draw. We're going to draw them as be predominantly lines. So like I don't want to assume anything, but that had to have been a choice. Or it's just a super fucking scary way to draw something. So
I think it's both. And Maggie, I have to give credit to Maggie on this. We were talking about this because I was trying to find a way out for Miles before dinner tonight. I was going down the bullet list. Like I wrote a list and I was like, okay, you can't beat another. And the more I worked on it, she was like, none of this works. Like Miles, like the way that 2099 is saying it, if it's true, if we're working off the assumption if it's true, he's messed. It's not going to work out well for him.
Yep.
And I was like, I trust them to land this. I just don't see how it works. And she's like, well, you stop yourself. You have a literal being who can go to any universe and he's just hanging out just fine. So and she totally went English teacher on me, which I'm totally fine with. But I do think Spot may be part of the solution and be a problem. But I do feel like that could happen. I'm still banking on 2099 not being a reliable narrator, but Spot I feel like is gonna play some part in how we get the Spider-Verse essentially.
Well, Brian, the other thing that I think that I keep coming back to of this moment of like, so in the exposition dump at the beginning of Spot explaining how they're connected is he said, that was my spider from Dimension 42 that made it into your universe and fit you. So you don't belong there. And the thing that 2099 keeps saying this whole time is like, okay, when those canon moments don't happen, the universe falls apart. Now, Dimension 42 looks like a shit show, but I don't think it doesn't look like a big black hole that's fallen apart.
No.
And arguably, it doesn't have a Spider-Man, and it should.
Yes.
So by all intents and purposes, it should. So what happens when the canon events keep happening, but without the Spider-Man attached to them?
And I'm curious.
It's blowing my mind, and I keep coming back and being like, no, that can't be it. Like, I
agree. And okay, I have to ask you this question. When did you realize after Miles made it back to the transporter thing and he got sent out into the universe, when did you realize he wasn't in his home universe?
I realized it when there was a photo in the background. When he comes out of that room, there was a photo in the background that was just Mom and Miles.
Yes.
And there were similar photos in the apartment with them that had all three of them. That's when I noticed. And then I was like, no, because I don't trust my brain when I watch stuff like that.
Oh,
I
sure.
that I'm wrong. But then it was when Uncle Aaron says like, I don't know if it was Uncle Aaron or if it was his mom said, oh, you took your braids out. Like, I was like, oh shit. Like,
no.
Nobody just changes. Like, that's something is going on. Like, if you just saw this person and they had braids and they're enough that it is shocking that you don't, it would be like if somebody said like, Doug, when'd you grow a full head of hair? Like, it's not something that's just going to happen overnight.
Like,
exactly. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and decide that that's not what I want. So,
I was on a very similar timeline, and it was definitely, I feel like I found out when most people did when he was like, Mom, I'm Spider-Man. She's like, who are you talking about? And I was like, oh no, no, this is awful for everyone.
There's no Spider-Man here.
Like, and somebody online pointed out like they knew something was wrong when he had the purple hoodie under his jacket, and I was like, I was so hopped up on Miles telling his mom that I was like, whatever, it's purple, I don't care. But like details like that, I think that's also just like what makes a good movie. This sense of urgency. I completely ignored all the visual indicators in this movie. When he's web swinging, it's a purple and green background. It's not it's not his city colors. He gets to his room, it's darker than usual. Like it's just all the puffer jacket, all of these clues, but you're not really caring about it because you just want him to get home so bad. And that's a good movie. And anyway, what a great movie.
And you want him to get to this moment because remember, to this point, he's risked everything trying to get back to stop this terrible thing from happening. So it kind of plays with your emotion of like, did he make it home? Is he going to make it back in time to stop it? And then it gets to this moment of like, oh no, he's not where he needs to be able to stop it. And so my guess is they're going to play with something with that of like, there will be a way to do both, but something. That's the thing is there's always a pound of flesh due with these. Like there's always there's always something due. And that's where I kind of hope that like this movie sticks with this. Like, no, it can be a happy ending.
Yes.
Like, there can be a happy moment on the other side of this. So I hope the movie sticks with that.
Well, and they even, it's not a hint. They nod. I don't know the right way to say this. They make a point to show that there are happy spider people. And like that is Peter B. Parker being with MJ, happy with a kid, no strings attached, no Mephisto, like no One Day More, like none of that. It's just him being happy, reading a parenting book, which I have read, by the way. The way I laughed in that movie theater probably startled some people, but how to talk to kids and how to get them to listen. I have read that book 100%.
Yep, so I'm sure. Yep.
That was a cool moment as a dad, but like having to see that, it's just giving this vibe of like, yeah, you can be happy. Like spider people can be happy, which everybody deserves happiness. You deserve to be happy. Whoever's listening to this, wherever you are, you deserve to be happy. And
Brian, if anybody wants to read something truly terrible, like you want to read something super sad, like read One Day More. It's not very long, but it is depressing. Like I could have a whole separate podcast about why that is such an incredible piece of comic book work because it is so good.
I mean, it answers the question of like, how sad do you think this story can get? And it answers it with flying colors. And you're like, well, I don't know if I needed that now.
Hey, so like Spider-Man, that's like the most he's ever had to give up. Right? Like that's the most right? Like No Way Home, like that's the worst. And you're like, well, not exactly, because he never had to come face to face with essentially a physical embodiment of his unborn child, who's the devil, by the way. Like
and basically is like the reason, like just you made all these choices and now you will never be able to have.
And if you're asking your question like, did Spider-Man wrong the devil? Is that why? No, the devil's just mad because he's too happy and was like, you know what? I gotta do something about that. Like
I remember reading that and I was like, I don't really
Brian, that is the first I purchased that book for I purchased that book at Rainbow Comics and Collectibles.
Wow.
In Sioux Falls. It was the first purchase I made at that comic book store.
Wow.
And it was before a flight with my new job. And I remember reading it on the plane because it was really close to when No Way Home was supposed to come out. And I remember reading it and I was like, oh no. Like
I mean, No Way Home makes you feel cheery compared to One Day More.
Very cheery by comparison.
And then you got Brand New Day, which great title, by the way, but then undid all of that
Oh yes, yep. Hashtag
Um,
comics, but
yeah, hashtag comics. But oh my gosh, I just Spider-Man can be happy. That I think that was the main
yeah,
thesis of
absolutely
my
he can.
statement.
Absolutely he can.
And geez, there's just so many good things to talk about in this movie, and I could ramble on and on. But
Oh yeah.
Man, is there something that you feel like we haven't got to that we got to touch
on? The only thing that I think is worth noting, and it doesn't need to be a super long thing, but I did feel like there was this moment when a version of Rhino is being sent back to his universe.
Yes.
And there's this connection between like all of these other spider people are like, yeah, this jackass has to go back to his universe.
Yep.
But Miles has this incredibly human moment where he's like, oh, that's like sad. He has this like odd emotional, like where he feels out of place, where he's like, oh no, like that's sad. Like that's sad that's happening. And he almost has a little bit of sense of pity for that version of Rhino that's getting sent back. And so I kind of thought that was a really cool choice to make. And I felt like that was a really great way to humanize Miles some more, to say, hey, like Miles is capable of feeling pity. And I think that that's where Miles sort of realizes, like, it doesn't need to be this way. Like, these things, this can't be true. Like, I kind of appreciate that being the moment, and seeing what happens to that version of Rhino when he's sent back, and kind of going like, there's this like internal dialogue that you kind of pick up on. And again, like trusting your audience, that I thought was really cool, of like, no, this doesn't feel right. Like this doesn't, that's where they should go. This also just something about this just isn't quite right. And so I thought that was a really cool moment. So not a huge moment by any means, but I thought that that's something that sticks out to me for sure, of this like this really human moment that Miles has, where he feels this sense of pity in a room full of people are like, villains deserve this.
And I think that frames it. I feel like that is a subtle point that frames how they treated Miles in this movie, because I will compare it to Empire Strikes Back. This movie also, the creators of this have compared it to Empire Strikes Back. And I think one of the important things here, that one of the creative decisions that I really liked, was how the way they treated Miles was so human and so well done in the arena of how mature he was and how confident he was. Because you look at Empire Strikes Back, and Luke's still kind of whiny, but he can like wave around a laser stick. But he's arguing with Yoda. He's telling off on Yoda. He's not listening. He gets his hand cut off because like he is this wild kind of element. And he's not sure if he can do it.
He's all emotion.
Right. He's like, I don't know if I can defeat Vader. I don't know. Contrast that with this movie, where Miles is like, I'm Spider-Man. I know I'm Spider-Man. Stop talking to me like I'm not Spider-Man. Please shut up. Oh, now you're chasing me. You don't think I have a plan? I do. I'm going to lead you up the moon train and then just fly away, because I'm going to do my own thing, because I'm Spider-Man. And that was never in doubt. And it was phenomenal. And you look at so many other superhero films that have come out, and like they all have this one episode or one movie where it's like, I don't know if I need to be Cheese Man.
Can I do this?
Can I really keep doing this? Iron Man 3 kind of does it a little bit. Oh,
Iron Man
2, I guess, really. But
Iron Man 2 hard.
Yeah.
Iron Man 3 a little bit more. Episodes of She-Hulk for sure do it, where they're like, I can't keep doing this. They play that a little bit differently. Most of Infinity War for Thor being can I keep beginning of Endgame, can I keep doing this?
And
Thor Love and Thunder, can I keep doing this?
And like, I'm not saying those stories are bad, but it's getting to a point where it's a trope, and it's like a check off the box. And like, is that how you want your character to evolve and unfold? And this totally sidestepped, and it's like, no, we know exactly who Miles is. We know exactly what he's going to do. And I think that's rad. And I think that's good storytelling. And I feel like other superhero movies can learn from that. We don't need to have this pity party for an entire 2.5 hours to be like, oh yeah, I am the person I need to be. The only other movie I can think of that sidestepped this, big shocker, because I'm a Cap fan, but was Winter Soldier. Like that movie kind of went the other way of like, no, I know exactly who I am, and this stuff's messed up, and that's the plot of the movie.
Yes, yeah,
you know,
yeah, and it even did that even more so in Civil War. Did that a lot too, of like, even that moment of doubt for him, he goes right back to like, no, hold on, no, this still isn't right. Like, and so Brian, I think that's. You're actually doing something that we typically don't see with superheroes. Superheroes, we think that they need to have like psychological weaknesses to overcome their like physical enablements or what have you. And so we say like, oh, what if they don't believe in themselves? What if it's a crisis? What if it's a crisis of confidence? And what I like about this is it's like, no, there's no crisis of confidence here.
Right.
If he's undone, it's going to be he's undone because he was so confident that this plan would work, that it took him somewhere he didn't realize he was going to go. And so it's he is going to be a victim of his own hubris in some way, shape, or form. That I think is a nice change of pace, like very nice change of pace.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the third movie is just acceptance of things you can or cannot change, which is fine to me.
I love that.
But, right. Yeah. But it was an inspired, I think, writing choice. And I think it paid off. And I think that you can, and the reason I think it worked is because then you bookend it with Gwen Stacy. And I think this is like, well, this worked out really well. Like as we're kind of coming to the end of our spoiler review here is like, Gwen understands what she did wrong. And we understand what she did wrong. And she confronts that with her father, and she boils down what it means to be like a lot of the Spider-Man ethos, right? Of like, I just want to help people. Like that's all I really want to do.
Yeah.
And Haley Steinfeld, I haven't mentioned her name yet, but rock star voice acting again. Like she's shooting star, and she delivers this moment with such pathos and ethos. It just, I teared up during the scene of her talking to her dad of like, you put on, like, that's what you do to help people. This is what I do. And that's all I want to do. It's this simple thing, but it gets so complicated from everything that's happened in the movie. Right. And then, you know, her dad says, I'm not a cop anymore, which Spider-Man is sending the message that helping people, don't be a cop. If you want to help people, don't be a cop. And having Gwen understand what she needs to do to fix it. And I'm glad that's how the movie ended on that note.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible point. I think that was an incredible moment. I think the other thing that I hope that they play with is like, they talk about, again, they keep going back to these canon moments, these moments that inspire you to rise to the occasion and become more of a Spider-Man. And what I find so fascinating is that moment wouldn't have been created for Gwen unless Miles was in a different place.
Oh man. Okay.
And so if that's a canon moment for her, and that strong thing is there, right? Because she becomes more entrenched in her convictions. She realizes that you can't save everybody, but you can't save anybody, but you have to try, right? That's the moment. That's
100%.
Those are the points of being a Spider-Man that I'm boiling down to an essence.
Yeah.
That moment literally would not have happened for her if Miles hadn't made the choices that he had made. So is he thereby creating a canon moment for her?
Oh man.
There's a whole chicken and egg thing of like, if he doesn't go to the wrong dimension, does it not then create this moment for Gwen? Would she have had it either way?
That is stellar.
That what I don't know. And I'm going to leave it there because I think I don't want to unpack it because we're not going to know until we get to the third one.
No,
so
but that could be such a great thing to talk about though.
Oh yeah.
I mean, right? Like, or just investigate when we're talking about canon and these are the things that have to happen. And like, no, you can have new canon that's beautiful and new and raw and maybe not perfect, you know?
Or what if it's not how the lesson is delivered so long as you get it? right? Like that's the canon moment isn't the event itself, it's the meaning from an event. And so whatever that event is doesn't matter so long as you take the meaning away from it is what matters. And so that's what I'm kind of curious to see if is that the door open to fixing the canon thing that's tied in with Miles. So it could be, who knows? But you should see this movie.
That's a great point. That is a great point to end this on. If you tuned in for the spoilers, obviously you probably saw. I'm gonna see it again. So go see it again.
I will be definitely seeing it. It's very good. It's very good. So
stellar.
Yeah. Brian, anything else that you'd like to say about the movie or anything you'd like to plug this week?
I mean, the animation, I'm not an animator, but the things that they're doing in this movie, I don't know why other people can't keep doing, why they can't do it. Like, I just do this. Like, this was
Sony
beautiful.
Animation is a different level. Mitchell's in the Machines, Spider-Man.
I mean, Pixar's Pixar, man, but Sony Animation, they're coming for you. They're not even comparable. Like,
nope.
I hope this starts an arms race for animation, please.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, like that's all I'm saying.
I mean, that's how we got, remember that's how we got like Shrek and Despicable Me, is that like DreamWorks was like, not today, Pixar. And then Pixar was like, please. And that's basically how it went down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Like make good animation.
Go see this.
Yeah.
Yep. And do this.
All right. Yeah. What am I going to plug? I'm plugging thelovenerds.com. I mentioned Maggie. Maggie runs this website. It's a lifestyle blog, and she is the one that I get inspiration from, that I get ideas from, that I bring to this podcast. So go support her. If you like those ideas that I mentioned, go to thelovenerds.com, show some love.
Absolutely. I'm going to plug Marcus's. Remember what you got to do. Follow the mantra, never offended, always humble. New music is on the way. There's some new merch in the store. You can get that by going to @__ the mantra, or you can go follow Marcus on all of his socials as well. I believe it's Marcus J. Destin, wherever you find him socially. And he's got a link to the spread shop to go and check out the new merch. So that launched, so check that out. And then, like I said, there's new merch on the way. There's new music on the way. Merch is here. Music is on the way. So be sure to check that out as well. And then this podcast, for me, pivoting into what I'm plugging, is this podcast. Yeah. Remember to share us with a friend. And so that's the best way to kind of give the love to everybody, is to let us know if you enjoyed our discussion about Ted Lasso and about Spider-Man. Share us with a friend. And if you're feeling inclined, go over to patreon.com/filmsinblackandwhite to sign up and become a part of the Patty family. And then, just because Marcus isn't here, MILFs. Let's just make sure everybody's still on board with MILFs. I want to make sure, it's been a while since we've plugged MILFs on the podcast. I want to make sure that we plug MILFs on the podcast specifically for Marcus. We got to make sure.
We love you, man. We missed you.
We're thinking about MILFs because we're thinking about you. That's the way this works.
So if you like MILFs, that's the way that you can show that you like Marcus.
Honor Marcus. Let's all take a moment to honor Marcus by thinking about MILFs, shall we? And that's what we got. Brian, we have a 3-step process to success. Sir, what is our first step? LOL.
I'm happy to take the first two. And I can let you,
I'll do the third.
End it here. Yeah. Oh my gosh, incredible moment here. Hey folks, read a book. Are you somebody that you like starting and finishing things? I finished it, it's done. I have completed this project. Well, boy, do I have something for you. It's called a book. And there is a definite beginning and a definite end. I just finished a book that was it was a challenge for me. It's called How to Do Nothing. It was not exactly everything I thought it was going to be, but it was still a good book. It challenged me, and I finished it. I can say I finished that today. I started something and I ended it today, and that feels good. So read a book if you want to finish something.
Absolutely.
Look, step 2, you need to drink some water. We know we have a lot of listeners in hot weather climates. Your body is basically, essentially just like a giant plant and it's like a giant bag of water. So you keep yourself happy. You're just this complicated plant with a bag of water with a lot of feelings. And the way to keep yourself feeling good, drink some water. It's really easy. You can get it from the tap. If you can't get it from the tap, just get some, whatever your preferred brand is, your Dasani or your Aquafina, whatever it is, just drink some water.
Absolutely. And y'all, right now it's 80 degrees and it's 9:30 at night. And
Gross.
so if that isn't a sign that you should be washing your ass, I don't know what you need. Brian and I have talked about it earlier. It's you go outside and within about 5 minutes of movement, you're sweating. That sweat drips all over. So just get in the shower, give yourself a clean off. It's 2 shower season. It's you wake up, you shower, you go to bed and you shower, or you kind of time it out in the day so you stay fresh. Do what you got to do, but clean the sweat off your body. You don't need to be smelling, as Marcus would say, we don't need that musty ass smell following you around everywhere. So just wash your body, wash your legs, and the world will thank you for that.
Yes,
for sure.
Please keep yourself, keep that hygiene, keep it happening in the summer, please.
Yeah, it's just because there's fresh air rolling in outside doesn't mean we don't still smell you. So there's that. That does it for this week's episode of Films in Black and White. We will be back next week with another fantastic episode. So in the meantime and in the between time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love y'all. Appreciate y'all. We'll catch y'all next week. There's no quippy end.